I now declare that the Plano City Council is convened in open session, that all council members are present, with the exception of Councilmember Williams and Councilmember Riccadelli. The council will now recess into executive session in the Children's Program Room to hold a closed executive meeting pursuant to the provisions of Vernon's Texas Code's Annotated Government Code, Chapter 551, the Open Meetings Act, in accordance with the authority contained in Section 551071 to consult with the attorney, to receive legal advice and discuss litigation, and Section 551074 to discuss personnel matters. Thank you. was giving you either the option. No, either one. I now declare that the Plano City Council preliminary open meeting is reconvened in open session, that all council members are present. Our first item on the preliminary agenda is consideration and action resulting in the executive session. Next item is the discussion and direction regarding nominations to the Collin Central Appraisal District and the Denton Central Appraisal District. Lisa, tell me, do we have a list of nominees for those that have actually, do they apply with the city on this?
So they can apply to the city on this. We just will need to do a resolution at the next meeting nominating individuals. The appraisal district has to have the information by the 11th, which is before our first October meeting.
Okay.
And so these would be for the 5 appointed positions, and they'll serve 4-year terms.
Can you send council the members that are currently on the Collin and the Denton County?
They're in the agenda item.
Okay. And but I think it's my understanding one of them does not want to serve again?
I do not know.
Okay, so I'll confirm that for the next meeting. But if
Okay.
there are any other folks that have asked to be on there,
We can double check and send a list if there is one.
send that list the
Yeah.
Wednesday before.
Yeah, so you'll
Okay.
just need to, at the next meeting, if we want to nominate. And then it will come back to you at the end of November to actually vote on the
Okay. All right.
individuals.
Is everybody okay with that regarding those nominations? Okay. Next item is the fiscal roadmap presentation. Welcome, Shelley.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Shelley Seamer. I'm one of the Deputy City Managers, and I'm pleased to present to you on an update on our fiscal roadmap. So that is the agenda that I wanted to speak to, primarily focusing on the action plan, so you know what to expect come January and prior to the next fiscal year. So to refresh your memory, a couple of years ago, the city manager brought forward an initiative called Fiscal Roadmap, and it was in response to his vision and understanding that we're going to be at a crossroads where we're changing from a growing city to a mature city, and what are the impacts both financially and operationally, knowing that we thought 3 to 5 years we're going to need to make some adjustments. And so we worked with a consultant, Dan Johnson, who partnered with Baker Tilly, to really develop what that concept would look like. If you recall, last August, I believe they presented to you the structure of a fiscal roadmap. And so staff then, we thought, let's start really planning out our trip. Let's look at what milestones we need to really make sure we remain the city of excellence through that mature era of city development. And so we began that trip planning. We thought, let's develop what are our low-hanging fruits, what policies do we need to bring back? But we also started with benchmarking, looking at other cities that have already gone through the transition and what changes have they made to their fiscal and operational policies. And then this budget year came and we realized, we need to speed up our approach. And we have now really focused on 4 main areas that we're going to bring back to you in the near future. Those 4 areas are looking at financial policies, our long-range financial model, our analytics and accountability and budget process changes. And as I go through these, I'll explain a little bit more. I think you're aware of the current budget landscape that we're in. Many cities are also experiencing the same landscape, especially those that are more moving to from a growth mode to a mature mode. Revenues are flattening, costs are increasing. And so that's why this is more important now, is I think that crossroads came a little sooner than we expected. Some internal factors, it's important to note, our reputation as a city of excellence really has been built on the foundation that every department is really the best in their field. And many other cities benchmark to our various departments. We're accredited where we can be accredited. At the same time, we want to make sure as we go through this transition that organizationally we've got to relook at some of our policies and practices to make sure that we are able to approach our financial policies and operational excellence to make sure the city as a whole remains excellent. And that is still expectations that the departments continue to be the best in their class, but also how can we do that from an organizational standpoint? One thing that is a good benchmark, and some of the cities we've really been focusing on are ones that have received the Malcolm Baldrige Quality Award. And that really is a focus that cities have made that look at things operationally, or systems approach is what you'll hear me say. To remain the city of excellence, it's important to note really our financial foundation has been built on a great deal of excellent policies and practices. What I would say, we just need a tune-up. We need to look at what are our procedures? How are we implementing? What are some of the policies that need to be adjusted to make sure we can weather our transition? And really the goal is to have a reliable, consistent, and predictable model. So let me talk a little bit about the timing and what you can expect from us. There are the 4 areas with some of the specific policy areas and initial focus areas that we want to get really working on and bring back first, policy guidelines. What are our guardrails? It's kind of defining what we want to change, and we'll bring back to council policies that, policy recommendations for you to consider by January. And then after that, it'll be, okay, now how do we implement? How will staff follow these policies? So that will then be a broader focus group, and this is all really internal staff, but we'll bring forward to you what decisions we need so we know what those levers are that you desire. So let me talk about each of these real quick. The first one, financial policies, the 3 first priority categories are up there. Fund balance policy, we want to look at all of our fund balances, internal funds, everything, and really look at defining what are the balance minimums, specify criteria for restricted and unrestricted, look at the city as a whole in all of those funds. Capital maintenance policy is one of the top priorities as well. That also feeds into replacement policies, so vehicle replacement fund, equipment replacement fund, really reviewing and redefining the parameters and also the alignment with the general fund balance. As capital maintenance and the replacement funds, those fund balances tie closely with the general fund and show the fiscal health of the city, especially when you're looking at rating agencies. So we're going to be looking at all of that. And then the third one, budget policies and practices. As you know, our greatest resource is our staff. It's also the largest expenditure. And we will be, this is more internal, but really looking at the costs, getting micro level projections for all of our salary and benefits, knowing, if things project on the same path, what will those costs be in the future so we can make plans for that. We'll also look at a more robust review process for staffing changes. Looking at, requests for new staff, okay, really diving into what about the vacancies you have? How are your overtime costs? Really looking at some organizational approaches to staffing level changes. The next one is long-range financial model. What I would say is the financial projections is kind of like the computer chip in the car. It will really help define where we're headed, and nothing works without it, in a sense. So this is going to be a new financial model, projections that really are, it's more interactive, scenario-based, long-term economic model that comes in so that we can really define what is a baseline for the projection, and then we look at different scenarios. What are worst-case scenarios, best-case scenarios, and then we can kind of plan from there a little bit more methodically. New revenue generation is another area, is just really making sure we have capitalized on any possibilities, and we'll bring those forward to you. And then cost recovery policy. We have heard council talk in the past about fees and how do we set those, how much is recovered in costs. And what the goal is to have an organizational approach again to this. And what I mean by that is there'll be a range, a spectrum of fees or costs based on level of service. So a basic core service is going to benefit the entire community. So what would the cost of service be? It's basically supported by general fund, your tax dollars. A value-added service that benefits an individual or a specific business likely will have higher cost recovery. So we'll have that spectrum, and then we'll bring back a plan to implement on a regular cadence, but also if it's not going to be reviewed 1 year, what's the method to increase cost based on CPI or other methods? We will be bringing back a policy recommendation in that area. These next two aren't really policy-based that you'll see, but you'll see the result of it by more intentional focus on analytics and accountability. Data metrics and being data informed is critical. And so the goal is to have early indicators of overall budget performance, variances that inform the city manager and the executive team if things aren't as we expected throughout the budget year. So a little more detail and data analytics, but also analytics on the financial model. Are our projections and assumptions being seen? Is that coming to reality, or do we need to make some adjustments early on? The other is budget process changes. This is more internal, but what we plan to do is really look at our calendar of when we get projections in, when we finalize salary and benefit projections, when we have fee changes. Those will all come much earlier in the process so the city manager can clearly say, here's our guardrails, team, and best case, worst case scenario, then we know what we can work with. So that is the plan. And these are just the first steps. This is going to be a very long-term, always living, breathing fiscal roadmap project. But what you can expect from us is we're going to get to work in small focus groups, mostly the department staff, leaders that are already working in these areas, already familiar with the policies, we're going to work to redevelop and redefine them. The goal is, again, bring those forward no later than January, and we'll probably bring some forward in the interim, in the meantime, as some might be a little bit easier to develop than others or faster. So we will bring those back to you for your input, your feedback, and so we can make sure from a policy level it reflects what your goals are as council. And then once the policies are set, we're going to broaden our focus groups deeper in the organization to really talk about how are we going to implement, and we'll have an action plan. It's important to note a lot of this is tweaking but changing our processes. And so there's another effort that's going in sync with the fiscal roadmap, and that's focusing on operational efficiencies and performance excellence, which LaShawn Ross is leading, and we're very much aligned that as we go through this, we want to make sure our organizational culture, we bring that along and pay attention to what changes it has and impact, making sure communications are strong. And then longer term, way down the road, hopefully not too far, we will be aligning fiscal roadmap with a strategic plan, master plans, and a lot of other things that will feed into this. It's just the start. We just want to make sure we're ready to go before the next budget development phase. So any questions or comments?
Any questions for Shelley?
Yes?
Thank you very much for that, Shelley. Regarding new revenue sources, how many stones are we going to turn over looking to make sure that the cost of services are borne by the people as logically as possible who are using those services and benefiting from them?
Yeah, I think that's partly to the cost recovery component is creating that definition. As far as new revenues, I think it's a matter of looking at what, it could be in any arena, but what are some other components that cities are utilizing to kind of augment what we get from the general fund. So I don't know what that's going to look like, but that's what the team is really going to focus on and bring back to you all. And ultimately, you decide, yeah, that's a great idea. No, we don't like that. And we'll adjust. Mhm.
All right.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
Shelley. Appreciate it. Our next item is the consent agenda. Any item council member would like to remove? Okay. Next item is any items for future agendas? Okay. We will take a recess and begin at 7 o'clock. I now declare that the Plano City Council is reconvened in open session, that all members are present. We'll begin tonight's regular meeting with the invocation led by Senior Pastor Jason Atchley with Hunters Glen Baptist Church. Please join the council in reciting the pledge and the Texas pledge after the invocation.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's pray. Creator God, we acknowledge you as the giver and sustainer of all things. I thank you on behalf of all who have gathered here today, and we thank you for the many and abundant blessings you bestowed upon us. Thank you for the freedoms that you provide. I pray for our mayor and the various levels of city officials and for this assembled council, asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern, a sense of welfare for all the people of Plano, personal peace in their lives and joy in every task. Pray for the agenda set before them today. Would you give us an assurance of what we do would please you and would benefit all people who call Plano home. In Jesus' name, amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay. Consent agenda, please.
The consent agenda. The consent agenda will be acted upon in one motion and contains items which are routine and typically non-controversial. Items may be removed from this agenda for individual discussion by a council member, the city manager, or any citizen. The presiding officer will establish time limits based upon the number of speaker requests.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. Next item.
Items for individual consideration, public hearing items. Applicants are limited to 15 minutes presentation time with a 5-minute rebuttal if needed. Remaining speakers are limited to 30 total minutes of testimony time with 3 minutes assigned per speaker. The presiding officer may amend these times as deemed necessary. Non-public hearing items. The presiding officer will permit public comment for items on the agenda not posted for a public hearing. The presiding officer will establish time limits based upon the number of speaker requests, length of the agenda, and to ensure meeting efficiency, and may include a cumulative time limit. Speakers will be called in the order the requests are received until the cumulative time is exhausted. Item number 1, public hearing and consideration of an ordinance to grant the appeal of the Planning and Zoning Commission's denial of zoning case 2024-12. Request to rezone from neighborhood office to single-family residence 6 and rescind specific use permit 585 for veterinary clinic and kennel on 7.7 acres located on the east side of Spring Creek Parkway, 540 feet west of Meadowlands Drive.
And here to present a zoning case for you this evening. This is an appeal of a zoning case that was denied by the Planning and Zoning Commission, so it is a little bit of a unique situation with zoning. The property is shown on the screen, both the existing zoning you can see on the left and the aerial of the property, which is heavily treed and undeveloped on the right side. You can also see the surrounding land uses in the area. The history of this site, it was rezoned from commercial employment, which is consistent with the land to the north, to a neighborhood office and includes an SUP for veterinary clinic and kennels. That was in 2007. There were plans approved as part of that request. Additionally, plans were approved in 2012 for veterinary clinic and office uses. Those have never been built. The comprehensive plan and Parks Master Plan were amended in 2023 to consider this property for a future park due to the nature of the site. So the proposed development is a request to rezone to single-family 6 to allow construction of homes on the site. It would also rescind the veterinary clinic SUP. So no plan was submitted for review, so we do not have confirmation of the developable area. However, the applicant has estimated that 13 residential lots may be possible on the property. We also, due to the site layout, the nature of the limited access, we anticipate that variances to the subdivision ordinance and fire code are likely required. So this is what the floodplain looks like on this property. Prior plans, you'll see a bridge getting from the access on the west side of the property to the east. So this is the topography. So you can see the highest point of the property is at the northwest corner along Spring Creek Parkway. And there it slopes downward to floodplain area and then rises a little bit, and there's floodplain to the south as well. So there is a lake about 1,100 feet to the north of the property, northeast really, and you can see it on this. The city did an analysis of the breach of that dam and what would be the impacts to property owners downstream. And so the yellow line there is a sunny day inundation boundary. So if it's not raining, red is if it is raining. That is the extent of my understanding of the dam breach analysis. However, there are engineers here, Caleb Thornhill, the Director of Engineering, and Russell Erskine, who's our hydrological engineer, is here to discuss this further if you have questions. The conformance with the comprehensive plan. This is shown as open space network on the future land use plan and a park on the future land use map, or the Parks Master Plan. We did not consider this so directly because the property needs to be able to develop. It can develop based on the existing zoning today. So the question is really whether it should develop under O1 zoning or under single-family zoning. So this is the Parks Master Plan. So the reason why this was added is really you see those bubbles on the map indicate park service areas. So there's quite a bit of land in the northwest part of the city that is not covered by parks, and that's why the city is looking to add in this area. There were also the complexities of developing this site that lent it to consideration for a park. So what about the suitability of residential in this location? Well, their comprehensive plan does speak to this in the undeveloped land use action, LU3. The plan talks about ensuring that new housing growth creates a functional and appropriate environment for residential uses. So that is a consideration. It is adjacent to residential development across Spring Creek and to the south across another creek. So there is proximity but not connection. So it also speaks to access to neighborhood parks, which are not directly available in this location. The neighborhood to the south is a gated community. So the undeveloped land use policy also speaks to these issues about related comprehensive plan standards. Redevelopment and growth management talks about limiting new residential developments to areas that are appropriate based on individual site considerations. The housing trends analysis does speak to the need for additional housing in the city. So you'll see in this summary that there are a number of policies that are not met, but some are met by this request. So the responses we've had within the 200-foot boundary, the property owner did not respond directly with letter, but we did have 3 letters in support and 1 in opposition from people within 200 feet. And the overall total support is 6, 1 opposed, and 7 total responses on this site. So the Planning and Zoning Commission did deny this by a vote of 6-2. That results in a requirement for a supermajority vote on this item. If it is to pass, that requires 6 council members to vote in support of this item. There also are requirements for findings due to the mix of uses. That is the end of my report, and the applicant is here and has a presentation.
Thanks. Any questions for Christina? Casey? Hold on. Casey?
On the map you showed that outlined where we don't have coverage for parks in the area, did that take into account the parks land we have set aside in the Legacy West area?
I believe the existing red bubble that you see there is related to Glasscock Park. Ron Smith is here with the Parks Department if you have something to add.
Specifically to answer that question, this map, the red bubble is showing where Glasscock Park is, which is the general vicinity of that other piece of property that we're considering. Still shows a significant gap to the west and south of that, and this would address a portion of that.
Okay, thank you, Christina. Good presentation. I do have a question with regards that parks location that you had indicated on here. Is it for this particular parcel, or did it cover a much larger area of that open space? Because, I mean, what you had delineated was the property that's being rezoned. So was that specifically what we were targeting to be a future park, or was that a much larger area?
Could you please, I'm sorry, could you repeat that question for me?
This picture we're seeing here on the Parks Master Plan, okay, that looks an awful lot like the parcel in question right now. My question is, that's a lot of open space over there. Was your park that we're hoping to plan much bigger than this particular place?
No,
Or
it's
was just that one spot?
It's not much bigger at all. And so we don't have a lot of options in that portion of Plano, and so we're really looking for pieces that will help address those gaps in our system.
Well, if you look at the other future land use map, it looks like there's an awful lot of open space there. Okay. And that's what I'm getting at. That little parcel that you have here, which the petitioner is trying to develop as residential, but you got much more open space north of that.
Yes, there is open space that is owned by a corporation just north of that, and so that's not something that we're currently identifying as a potential park.
But this space here is owned by an individual, correct? The one that has the SUP.
That's right.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
So the
they
city does
can-
not own this property.
That's correct.
Okay, so really, you're defining a park on property you don't own.
Yes, and that's the case in a lot of the park master plan where we identify proposed parks, future park, something that we do strategically to try to address gaps in our system. It does not prevent the owner from developing this property whatsoever.
Right. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Shelby.
Yes, thank you, Christina, and I appreciate your team's adherence to the comprehensive plan. I want to make sure I'm understanding properly. Is the nonconformance with the mix of uses and the maximum density strictly because this is identified in the comprehensive plan as open space network?
That is correct.
Okay, but to Councilman Horn's point, we don't own the land, but the comprehensive plan designated it open space network nonetheless.
That is correct. So we judged it based on the master plan.
Okay, okay. I appreciate that diligence, but I think that's one of the nuances that gives council the ability to review this for. I don't actually see that as a real violation of the comprehensive plan.
I would agree.
A technical.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Anthony.
Thank you, Mayor. Christina, I wanted to ask, the staff recommendation of denial mentions the mix of uses issue regarding open space network that Councilmember Williams addressed, and also the dam breach concerns and essentially suitability for residential development. Would you say one or the other of those is the primary driver for the staff recommendation for denial? What's the most important issue?
I think the primary issue for us is this a appropriate location for residential? Is the risk to the property due to the floodplain and potential for flooding and our inability to really notify people over the long term as to the risk to their homes? Is it appropriate for housing versus office where we feel like there's fewer health and safety issues related to the land use?
Okay, thank you for that response. And I have questions for Russell Erskine. I don't know if this is the right time for that or maybe after the applicant.
Let's go ahead and let, open the public hearing and let the applicant present.
Thank you, Mayor.
We'll open the public hearing.
We do have several speakers on this item. Brian Robertson was the first one for the applicant that had signed up.
One quick question I have. Do we want public citizens, I'm the presenter and the applicant as the developer, do we want public to speak first or me do the presentation first? Okay, great. I do know that there are Brian Robertson with Robertson Companies, 5700 Granite Parkway in Plano, Texas. Appreciate the opportunity to appeal this request, and I'm going to start off with general presentation on why we think single family would be the better use. And then I also have Mitchell Jensen with Kimley Horn, who's our certified floodplain manager. At the request of certain requests, we weren't properly prepared at P&Z, hence the denial for the technical side of things. So I'm going to save that to the end, go through the general presentation first, and then have him here to answer any technical questions you all may have. All right. So our request is obviously to rezone from to FS6 from let me see, I think, was that the current zoning, O1. I'm going to rehash this real quick. O1 neighborhood office is the current zoning with the SUP for vet office. So there's roughly 35,000 square foot of office. We feel through our calculations required by the city of Plano in our submittal, we have about 628 vehicle trips per day. Office was approved about 17 years ago. Plans for the office were approved a little over 12 years ago, and nothing has happened to date. Proposed zoning to rezone to SF6. We've got 13 luxury lots ranging anywhere from $2.2 to $2.5 million homes. We feel like there is a definite need for this that's consistent with Normandy Estates, Shoal Creek, and Kings Ridge right across the street. The vehicle trips per day on single family versus the currently zoned office is only 187 trips, so there's a decrease of over 400 vehicle trips per day for single family. In just comparing the two, just to reiterate, there's 441 more trips per day with the office. It's obviously been zoned for over 17 years. There's nothing has happened. No tax base to the city for over 17 years, and we're ready to put about 40 million in revenue to add to that tax base into the city of Plano. We feel like the SFA patio home zoning around, we're actually doing a little bit less dense, and so it fits the surrounding neighborhood up and down the Spring Creek corridor. So this is a little bit better view of our conceptual plan. Our conceptual plan to us as developers is a pretty picture, right? The city of Plano's concept plan looks more like a site plan, has requirements. That's why we did not submit that formally, because SF6 straight zoning does not require a conceptual plan to be submitted. We have vetted this out. The need for fire or some variances are not likely. We had a cul-de-sac length in our initial pre-app meeting of about 630 feet. We've reduced that under the 600-foot minimum. That is really the only discussion we had about variances, and we will not need to do that at this point. Before I move forward, we get really technical here because this was the point of denial with P&Z. We weren't really prepared for the technical side of things when we were at P&Z. We are prepared today. We've done some extensive research. We've boiled down that the real concern was not really the suitability of single family. The issue that was mentioned was the life and safety of citizens. And we really feel like what we have in the technical data that we have in the downstream analysis and flood study that we have already performed, which is typically done at preliminary plat stage, was done in advance. So we've done all that, and that's why we delayed our appeal to provide us more time to meet with the engineering, have those discussions. But obviously, we haven't made the formal submittal. We just had the high-level conversations. So we're here to do that today. And we also have the seller's representative here. She has been sitting on the property for over 17 years, and so she's in Connecticut, but her representative is here to speak as well. And I will leave that right here. And if any other questions while I'm up, or would you like to?
We'll ask questions
Sure.
after your presentation.
Sure.
So if you want, I guess you want your engineer to come up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'd like some support to talk. We've got some neighbors that are in support, and then we also have.
We'll do that after your
Okay.
presentation.
Okay, great.
With whoever you're having present.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, council members. My name is Mitchell Jensen. I'm a civil engineer with Kidley Horn & Associates and a certified floodplain manager. I specialize in hydrology and hydraulics, and I've been helping Brian and his team look through the due diligence on this site. So as you see on this exhibit here, there's several floodplain lines going on. First and foremost, and I think we've already discussed earlier, but the hatched area, the hatched blue and the hatched red, that's associated with our FEMA floodplain. The date of the FEMA floodplain study is a little bit old. The FEMA maps were last published in 2011, so the floodplain mapping likely does not correspond to the current contours, but it is a close approximation. Per City of Plano requirements, we have also performed a fully developed floodplain analysis. The difference between the FEMA floodplain and the fully developed is the FEMA typically takes the flows for existing conditions at the date of the study, so think post-2011, lots changed in this area since then, and then the fully developed assumes a fully developed watershed per the current zoning. So a little bit more conservative, and we went through that and saw that we could place 13 lots with some cut to mitigate the little bit of fill that we were putting in the floodplain. That's what you see in the darker blue hatched areas there. So that's cut to offset any fill so that we would show no rise in water surface elevations, no increases in velocities per city criteria, and our finished floors for all the homes could be at least 2 feet above the fully developed and FEMA floodplain. If we go to the next slide. Oh, sorry. Thank you. As you can see here, so we have plotted, so the water surface elevation changes quite a bit as you go through the length of the creek because it's about 300 to 400 feet. But we have summarized it between the upstream and downstream end of the property. So on the upstream end, let me see, I'm going to pull up mine real quick. I can't quite see that far. On the upstream end, the water surface elevations are, the 100-year fully developed event are around 595. Our finished floors for the lowest finished floors in the area are around 598.1. So we're about 3 feet above those. In addition to that, we took a look at what the sunny day breach was. As a reminder, when that was discussed, the sunny day breach is, hey, what would happen if the dam were to fail in its normal operation condition? So as you see it today, the dam were to suddenly fail, the breach limit that we are required to do per TCQ is 3 times the height of the dam. So this dam structural height is about 24 feet. So the breach width that was used in this analysis would have been 3 times that, so almost 70 feet. So with the sunny day breach, you can see per this table, all of our finished floors are elevated above the sunny day breach event. In addition to that, to provide some additional data, we looked at how this compared to a 100-year breach, which is not necessarily regulated by TCQ, but as an additional data point. And with that, almost all of the lots, like I said, all but 5 lots are elevated above that breach event as well. And then the 75% breach, which is the design storm for the reservoir. So to give you guys an idea of the difference between the 100-year design event and the 75% PMF, the 100-year flow that we're usually using is based on about 9.5 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, whereas the 75% PMF is based on 75% of the controlling storm duration, which in this case was a 1-hour storm, which yields about 15 inches of rain in a 1-hour time period, whereas we're normally designing for 9.5 inches in a 24-hour period. So that produced the highest water surface elevation in the upstream lake, and therefore which is what the dam owners of that lake need to design their spillway to handle so that the dam does not overtop. And it acts as a data point to prepare the breach analysis downstream to kind of paint a picture of a worst case scenario rather than a everyday event or the I guess the normal design standard, which is the 100-year. So if we go to the next slide here. So we wanted to make sure that by placing these homes in the property, we weren't going to inadvertently impact other neighbors and other homes that were impacted by the breach. So we preliminarily have updated the breach model to add the fill associated with the development, and saw that we do increase water surface elevations locally at the site as was expected. However, those increases are contained within an area that have no homes impacted. And as you look downstream, we're generally reducing or having no increase in water surface elevation, or any increases are occurring in locations that are already impacted by the breach. So we feel comfortable that the development of the property would not add additional homes into the breach area. And that is it. Any questions so far?
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Yep.
So I wanted to ask, before you did this study, I mean, obviously, there's already been residence that's built around that area, right? Was the same study or the same requirement that was asked of those development down that's closer to downstream than what you're proposing?
Not to my knowledge.
Do you understand what I'm?
Yes, you're asking if a breach analysis was required for the properties downstream.
So why is it now, it's now a pertinent issue when you guys are making this proposal?
I'll give you a quick history on this. So Mitchell was hired by PepsiCo back in 2020 to do the dam breach analysis. Ironically, he's our engineer who's handling all the flood study analysis on our property. So we got the guy who produced the report that was presented by staff, and now we have the downstream results and what we intend to do from the same certified floodplain manager, Mitchell. This was not done before, so every dam that meets the TCEQ requirements has to perform a dam breach analysis to be certified and registered with TCEQ. Then they have to perform by the owner annual inspections and inspections by the TCEQ every 5 years. So this is a requirement of TCEQ. Well, since the report was presented and made attention to the city, obviously the city had some concerns about life and safety of downstream, people or homes or structures. And so what we've done is we've tried to prove in our short time frame that we will not only meet the 100-year fully developed, which is a city of Plano standard ordinance. We couldn't even be standing here today if we can't bring 13 lots out of the 100-year floodplain fully developed today. But we're also going through a couple additional iterations because of the dam breach report, and we're providing those results in a positive way that we've done our research, and we really feel that we're not producing any life and safety issues for our homeowners or downstream. We're actually reducing it just a little bit, but it's almost just, a non-issue for the downstream portion. Because most people might say, when you develop, well, now we're getting flow from them, but this model and preliminary report that was presented to staff preliminarily, not a final report, which will be done at the preliminary plat stage and reviewed by staff. We'll be submitting that down the road. It's usually done at the preliminary plat stage.
Okay.
Another thing I might add, one thing on this slide, when Mitchell was explaining about the 100-year fully developed flood, the 100-year fully developed flood is about 9.52 inches in a 24-hour period. We went back to NOAA result over the last 125 years. 1932, there was 9.57 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. That is the largest rain event in Dallas-Fort Worth recorded. And so the dam breach analysis the TCEQ requires is about 4 times that amount. It's just an unrealistic requirement. And I just wanted to point that out so you know why we did not only a 100-year storm event and the dam breach, that the 75% PMF is 4 times that amount, and we've never, ever seen that type of rainfall.
Did you have another question?
Thank you. Yes, I did. For Mitchell, just wanted to go over those peak water surface elevations. So even at that extreme 75% PMF breach that we were just talking about,
Yes.
it looks to me so that the negative elevations are the ones where in that kind of cataclysmic storm that hasn't happened in recorded history in North Texas, the finished floor would be underwater by those negative amounts. And just looking through that, I don't think I see, unless I'm missing something, I don't think I see any that are more than 4.3 feet. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
And so just based on your professional opinion, and I'm going to ask our staff this as
Yeah.
well, is this the kind of sudden surge that would cause a life safety issue, or the kind of thing that would primarily cause property damage but people could get out of the way?
That is a dynamic question, and I don't have the answer to
Okay.
it, and it's more of a structural engineer question.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Brian, do you, I see Shane Jordan.
Yeah.
Do you want Shane to talk? And
Yeah,
then-
Shane
and then
is
we'll hear from
representing
your
us as-
homeowners.
Yeah, and then we also have we had a couple that couldn't make it, got stuck in traffic, but they are
Okay.
here. So we'll go ahead and start off with
Okay.
Shane Jordan.
Mr. Mayor, council member, staff, Shane Jordan, 16475 Dallas Parkway, Suite 540 in Addison. I represent the owner in a real estate brokerage capacity. Christina already talked about the history of the property, so I don't really need to go there. But since last year, we've had it under contract to a residential builder, not the party that's here tonight, an office developer, and then Brian. And the residential builder went away after they were told they'd have to raise the site 8 feet because of the Frito-Lay's dam, potential dam breach. And we need to put a note on the property that, on the plat, that the property could flood. I think all those were requirements that exceeded the city standards. But the office developer went away after estimating construction costs and evaluated the office market as, lackluster presently. And I've had to tell daycares, Montessori schools, event centers, assisted living facilities, other office developers about the ridiculous potential dam breach that is really a Frito-Lay problem and has unfairly burdened this property. And I'm going to make a corollary that may not be good, and I recognize that the Lake Louisville is not in Plano. Completely understand it. But if Lake Louisville's dam was to breach, it would flood homes and businesses along a route from the lake to the west side of downtown Dallas. The banks of the Trinity River would overflow. And yet, they haven't stopped construction in Louisville, Carrollton, Farmers Branch, City of Dallas. Nobody's, overly concerned about this Lake Louisville dam breaching. The site doesn't really work for just one building due to that there's a creek that kind of splits the property into 2 pieces. So to get a single user on the site to build a building is just difficult. So that's originally why we had the vet clinic on one site, and then we had some little office condos designed for the other side of the creek. But subdividing the site into single-family residential lots that are smaller individual lots
30
lets you
seconds.
work with the challenges of the site to allow it to develop properly. So I'm hopeful that after hearing Kimley Horn's information about not affecting downstream flood, if you have a dam breach, and the unrealistic nature of a 75, I don't know, is it PMF, PFM, whatever it is, it's just a lot of hyperbole. So anyway, I think if you take into consideration the facts that it's not really an issue, that I hope you would consider approving the zoning request. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Lisa Price.
Hi there, Lisa Price, 6821 Porsche Place. Porsche Place backs up basically to this development, probably about 550 feet away from it. And we would be totally in support of this development versus a two-story office building or a veterinary clinic or anything like that. And due to the traffic and everything else that falls into that realm. Yes, we're in total support, based off of all the data we've seen. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mark Hess.
Mr. Hesse and Mr. Voigt unable to attend. And then I'm here for any final questions. This is our last bite at the apple, so I'm here.
All right. Any questions for the applicant? Go ahead. Go ahead, Rick.
Actually, maybe more for your engineer. Is he still here?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a couple of technical points. You kept, or maybe Brian throwing out, TCEQ.
Yes.
A lot of people may not know what that is. That's a state agency that regulates environmental quality.
Yes.
And aren't they required, don't they review this and inspect the dams like this, every 5 years or so?
Yes, that's correct. So yeah, TCQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, they have a department that regulates dam safety. So their dam safety division, they inspect or send somebody directly from the commission to inspect any significant and high hazard dam within the state of Texas once every 5 years.
Gotcha. And then the final thing is, I think I heard the applicant say that you personally were involved in doing the original flood studies for the owner of the property.
I wouldn't
the
say,
corporate owner of
yes,
the dam areas.
I would say not the original, but the latest approved on record, yes.
Okay. And I would assume that as being part of the property owned by a large publicly traded company, that they would be particularly interested in maintaining this dam in tip-top shape to prevent us finding out if it would be breached at some point.
Yeah, they received a notice from TCQ about their dam, and they addressed any deficiencies that were there as part of our services.
Okay, great. Appreciate it.
Rick?
Just real quick.
Yes.
When we talked about the FFE, finished floor elevations.
Yes.
Right now, we were saying with the 100-year floodplain,
Yeah.
the applicant's looking to have all the homes 2 to 3 feet above that FFE, that floodplain? Is that correct?
That is correct, and city standards require 2 feet above minimum, and we are meeting that and exceeding it.
Okay,
And we are also about that same height above the sunny day breach as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate
y'all.
it. Is that it, Lisa? Okay. I'll close the public hearing, confine the comments to the council.
I'd make a motion to approve. I think the fact that this was designated open space network, despite the city not owning the land, makes the nonconformance with the comprehensive plan a technicality. And I've seen enough data to feel comfortable with any potential breach of the dam, because the fact is that whether it's office or residential, if such a thing were to occur, there's going to be damage one way or the other. There's no escaping that. I understand the perspective that it would be mitigated if it were office, and I'd rather have my office damaged than my home, but still there would be damage one way or the other.
And I'll second, I think this is a much better use than the current zoning.
I agree with that. I don't care.
Okay. Anthony?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned earlier, I just wanted to ask our engineer, Russell Erskine, I just want to see if we agree with the analysis that the engineer Mitchell presented. I want to make sure that that we feel like that was all accurate.
Right now, I have not been able to actually look, I looked at the data, but have not looked at the models yet, so I cannot verify all the elevations information that they presented. Right now, it looks good, but I have not verified it.
Okay, but at least we don't have any knowledge of any issues with that analysis at this time.
Right at this time, noon.
Okay, and we have development in other areas of the city that also are, like Willow Bend, that are potentially impacted by an unlikely dam breach as well?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay, gotcha. And we don't have any reason to disagree with their downstream analysis either?
No, we do not.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, well, thank you very much for that information.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Mr. Erskine.
So I have a motion and a second to approve item number 1. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes 8-0. Thank you.
Mayor, we'll need to fill out the findings
Oh, yeah,
forms.
lovely. We'll take a 5-minute recess to fill out our findings forms. Okay, we're back in session. Item number 2.
Item number 2, public hearing and consideration of an ordinance as requested in zoning case 2024-14 to amend the comprehensive zoning ordinance of the city, ordinance number 2015-5-2, as heretofore amended, granting specific use permit 68 for used vehicle dealer on .1 acre of land located on the west side of K Avenue, 1,285 feet south of Spring Creek Parkway in the city of Plano, Collin County, Texas, presently zoned corridor commercial. directing a change accordingly in the official zoning map of the city, providing a penalty clause, a repealer clause, a savings clause, a severability clause, a publication clause, and an effective date.
Request for a specific use permit on a small piece of property along K Avenue. So I'll go back here. You can see the parcel that's being considered. The request for SUP is for a used vehicle dealer, and it is at 5025 K Avenue in an existing building. You can see the building constructed in the aerial view to the right. It is kind of to the rear of the property. So this is a closer view of the lease space. It is just over 2,700 square feet of lease space inside the existing building. So this property was zoned corridor commercial in the year 2000 and has been consistently zoned that way since that time. It was just recently developed last year with the buildings that you saw on the site in the aerial view. So the requested use is for vehicle dealer used vehicles, and there is a restriction proposed because of the nature of the use. The applicant is requesting to prohibit outdoor vehicle staging and storage. They are going to store all the vehicles inside the building. So this is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. You see the suburban activity center category that is superseded by the Envision Oak Point plan. The star on the map is close to the location of the request. This is a commercial node designation in Envision Oak Point, which has a mix of commercial uses. The outdoor storage and display would be inconsistent, but since that's prohibited, it does not impact Envision Oak Point. So you'll see there are very few relevant sections in Envision Oak Point, and it does meet the commercial node. So the feedback we've had here is a little bit unique because it's a lease space. The property owner responded, so you'll see one letter within 200, or one letter within that is the subject property that extends beyond the lease space. And then we had another adjacent property respond, so a total of 2 responses, both the property itself and an adjacent property, both in support. So citywide, we had 2 in support, 2 in opposition, for a total of 4 responses. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval unanimously by an 8-0 vote with the restriction that was previously stated. I'm available for questions you might have, and the applicant is here and has a presentation.
Thank you, Christina. Any questions for staff? All right. I'll open the public hearing.
We have 2 speakers this evening representing the applicant, Jay Rampura. You're up.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, I apologize. Jay Rampuria, 1707 Woodsboro Court, Allen, Texas, 75013. I'm one of the owners of P1 Motorworks. We're a modern collectibles dealership that is based in Collin County. So I'll share a little bit of background on us and why we created the dealership over 2.5 years ago. Myself and my business partner, we're enthusiasts and collectors at first, been in the business for about 20 years now. We're not a typical dealership. We're creating more of an experience for our clientele. Our clientele are usually purchasing these kind of vehicles as investment, or they're part of their larger collections. They're not daily vehicles that they're purchasing. The reason we actually created the dealership was, as enthusiasts and collectors, we were actually pretty disappointed with the overall experience with other dealerships as far as clarity, poor information, lack of knowledge, and frankly, the customer was not the priority. It was very transactional. So our goal is to change that model, and we have. So just so you understand our business model, we're very low volume. We're appointment only. We do about 10 vehicles per month. They're collector grade vehicles. On average, the vehicle sale price is about $100,000, if not more. As far as revenue, just give you a general size of our business and the volume we're doing. We currently have 2 garages in Allen where we store majority of our vehicles. We do all the reconditioning, cleaning, prep. That will all take place there. It will not take place at the Plano location. The location in Plano is meant to be a destination for our clients, more of a celebration, deal signing, vehicle photography, et cetera. So all the vehicles, just to reiterate, are going to be stored inside. We are not a lot dealership by any means. And again, 90% of our transactions are actually sight unseen and out of state. So most of our client most of the transaction is done digitally, videos, pictures, et cetera. And then ultimately we ship the vehicle to the client or they come and pick it up themselves. This gives you an idea of the kind of vehicles that we're curating. So once again, we will not store anything outdoors. They're just, the value is too much there. So we always store them inside secure locations themselves. This gives you a general idea of the space and the concept that we're designing. So the one in the top left is our current space that we have. Again, it's more of a destination, a meeting space, and again, is by appointment only, so will not be large volume open to the public dealership. It's very much kind of by appointment and kind of very much low volume itself. Just some background, myself and my business partner have been in the industry again for over 2 decades. We're investors, and I've been in the Collin County area for over 40 years now, as my wife's family has. So we felt that Plano in particular was a great location for us, given the corridor and location. And just a little bit of background on us. It's our website, our social, and feel free to take a look at any of our Google reviews. Just give you a sense of the kind of customer experience we offer. Any questions?
Okay, any questions for Jay?
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
The next speaker is Michael Hope.
Hello, Mayor, council members, and staff. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Michael Hope, P.O. Box 427, Addison, Texas, 75001. I represent the owner of the property, and I want to say that P1 Motorworks is the type of quality business that we are very excited about a potential tenancy to have. We think it would really help to realize that Oak Point is in a neighborhood in transition, and a business like this could help lead that transition as well. And we think it's just really could set the tone for future tenants, in not only in our property, but in the surrounding properties as well. So we are very excited about it. We hope you find favor with this application, and that's really all I have to say.
Thank you, appreciate
Thank
it. Is that it? All right. We'll close the public hearing, confine the comments to the council.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve agenda item number 2 as presented.
Have a second.
Second. To approve item number 2. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. Thank you, appreciate it, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item number 3, consideration of an ordinance to approve and adopt the operating budget and setting the appropriations for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024 and terminating September 30th, 2025, and providing an effective date.
Good evening, Karen Rhodes Whitley, Budget Director. My goodness. Anyway, in your packet is all the updated fund summaries and the appropriation ordinance for the entire budget. The total is $758 million. It has not changed hardly any since the recommended budget was presented at the end of July. The only thing that really was changed was we consolidated, and the city council decided we were going to go with the median plus 5% instead of the lump sum for each of the employees. So that is the operating budget.
We have one speaker on this item.
Oh, yes, excuse me. Okay.
It's Jennifer Greisman.
Jennifer Groisman, Bracala Drive. I watched this council meeting on the budgets. I heard that the proposed budget was cut to the bone and we needed to tighten our belts. However, when I looked at the actual numbers, I did not see losses in revenue or cuts. Here's what I did see. 906.6 million in new property. I also saw that budget revenues are over 846 million, and the expenses are 756 million. That is almost a 90 million that will not be spent. I saw you're planning an increase on our water, trash, and sewer rates, an increase in utility fees. That will be passed on to the residents from the utility companies. One area of the budget that I found totally tone deaf to the economic struggles of the residents who are dealing with a 22% increase in food prices and lower wages is economic development, also known as corporate welfare. That line item stayed the same from last year at 8.5 million. 8.5 million added to the fund that currently has more than 53 million in it for companies like Raising Cane's, a $3.3 billion company. Instead of handing money out to millionaires and billionaires, how about looking out for the residents of Plano first? Cut the proposed 8.5 million in economic development by 6 million to lower the tax rate by 1 cent. That would still leave 2.5 million for businesses that don't need it. One council member argued against cutting anything from economic development because the business-to-business sales tax revenue was good and it reduces the burden on residents. Here's the flaw in that argument. Businesses don't actually pay taxes. Their customers do. If I hire a painting company to paint my house, the painter buys the paint from Home Depot. And he charges me for the paint, including the sales tax that he paid. So, any tax that the business pays must be passed on to the customers if the business intends to make a profit. So, you are not saving us anything. The residents will end up paying for the taxes and the cost of the products, materials, and services. Go back and cut the money in the budget for millionaires and billionaires and help reduce the economic pain your residents are dealing with right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
I need a motion on item 3.
Mayor, I have a couple of slides I'd like to
I'm
present.
sorry.
Related to the budget and the tax rate.
Go ahead.
Well, I wasn't expecting the Plano logo behind that, so that's going to be hard to read. When my slides were copied into the deck, that was applied. I'm going to do my best. The legend at the bottom shows wages, and I miscategorized these columns. The next one over, the colors all changed as well. Please bear with me. The next one over that says population plus inflation, that's actually supposed to be CPI inflation. That's what the consumer experiences. And it looks like that's the lime green line. The next one over that says MCI inflation, that's supposed to be population growth plus MCI, municipal cost index. That's the cost to the city. That's what we have to cover. The next one over, it looks like it's purple, is the Plano budget growth. And the next one over is actual Plano property taxes. That's not all taxes, that's just property taxes. So I started at a baseline of the same number for all of these from Q1 2020 to show the growth of all of these over time. Now, one of the things that Ms. Groisman just pointed out, and it was true, is that inflation has outpaced wage growth until Q1 of this year, which is right over the left side of the N of Plano, where they intersect, and wages just caught up to inflation over the past 4 years. So some people are certainly experiencing wage decline or stagnant wages, but in all, and I looked at the Bureau of Labor Statistics for this just today, I was pretty sick last week, and I'm behind the curve on all these slides. Otherwise, I would have been better prepared without the Plano logo behind these. The highest line here is the cost to the city of Plano, what we have to cover through population growth and MCI inflation. Municipal cost index inflation, of course, is measured differently than CPI. We're not measuring loaves of bread. We're measuring things like concrete, which isn't a dramatic part of our budget, but significant, as anybody who's driven on Parker lately will tell you. Now, the Plano budget, taxes, CPI inflation and wages are all fairly clustered at the end of this. In Q1 of this year, that's the latest wage data I could find, so I left it at Q1. I didn't bring it up to current. They're all pretty close and pretty tight. So what accounts for the supposed tax increase this year? And there is a tax increase. I'd like to go to the next slide, please. This is a little easier to read. And I was speaking with Councilman Riccadelli about this. In every year that we've adopted the effective tax rate and the no new revenue rate, we see the same chart every year. We see the average market value of a single-family home. We see the average taxable value of a homesteaded single-family home, which is artificially just the market value lopping 20% off to represent a homestead exemption. And we see the tax impact to a homesteaded single-family home. However, homesteaded single-family homes only make up roughly 40% of the property value in Plano, the $62 billion plus the new 900 and some odd million, which is only a 1.4% increase. But we've looked at that same chart year after year without considering the impact of the tax rate, which is an aggregate calculation across all of our property, but we don't look at what it does to commercial, business commercial and multifamily, which is lumped into commercial. But the tax impact that we've seen from the no new revenue rate and then from the tax increase that we actually passed last year was what we expected to see from the no new revenue rate, no new taxes. And we were like, okay, that looks good. And then this year, there was a dramatic jump that wasn't equal to the actual tax increase or the budget increase. And so that got me thinking for the first time in 5 years, what accounts for that? That's when I asked for the data for the increases to multifamily and business commercial. So that chart right there shows existing single-family homes, the valuation increase from that, as overwhelmingly the largest value increase that we saw based on the CADs this year. Existing multifamily is right next to it in the second column. It's teeny tiny, but comprises a much larger share of the actual property. Existing commercial has the second largest column in there, but it's dwarfed by the increase to the appraised value of single family. So that's the appraised value, that's not the market value. And I looked, and when I did the calculations, not the market value, but the appraised value of single family homes went up 10.6%. That was a little bit of a head scratcher as well, because we supposedly have the 10% cap on the increase in taxable value of single family homes. And that is true for homesteaded homes. About 10% roughly of our single family homes are rentals and have none of those protections, which would logically account for an appraised value increase in excess of 10%, 10.6. On top of that, at the last meeting, we were speaking, Karen, about the fact that single-family home values have been going up and up and up for about a decade, sometimes well in excess of that 10% appraisal cap. And that's not shut off every year. If the current market value of the home is twice the taxable value, then it'll just go up to the maximum of 10% every single year until it finally catches up, if ever, to the market value. So when the market value of single-family homes increased this year, still in excess of any of this, by 7.6%, it makes sense that the appraised value of single-family homes went up 10.6%. The appraised value of multifamily was negligible. We didn't get any new revenue there, but because our tax calculation is applied across all properties, we can't mix and match across single-family, multifamily, commercial, et cetera. Because of the disparity in the appraised value increases, the single-family homesteaded homeowners who are represented on that chart we look at every year, as I speculated last meeting, are taking it on the chin no matter what we do with the tax rate. If we do nothing, shooting from the hip, they're going to get about an 8% tax increase, which you could consider one of the largest tax increases on single-family homes that we've had for a very long time, the largest single-year tax increases on single-family homes. But that's if we actually adopted the no new revenue rate. And then multifamily would actually get a tax cut, a real tax cut, because of that, because we're applying these in aggregate. And single-family homes make up almost 50% of our total property tax base. So for a property tax system which doesn't rise and fall with sales and wages like income tax and sales tax do, we have to have tax increases over time to keep pace with inflation. With sales tax and income tax, that's taken care of just by market dynamics. You don't actually have to change anything with the level of taxes. It just comes in automatically. With property taxes, for a long time, we just set the rate and forget it, and the same dynamic took effect. Property value would go up, and the tax increases came with it, but when property values started going up so heavily or so high, then that necessitated lowering incrementally the tax rate every year. All of that is a very long-winded way of saying I was prepared to vote against this budget until I finished doing the math myself. And I saw that while it sounds like it's a very large tax increase, that applies strictly to single-family homesteaded homes. And in the past several years, the single-family rentals, the multifamily, and the commercial, who don't have any property tax protections, in a manner of speaking, they've already paid their dues. They were taking it on the chin every single year over many years, while it was the homesteaded single-family homeowners that reaped the benefit of the no new revenue rate. So I'm presenting this here in the budget discussion because we have a balanced budget, and the budget and the tax rate are inextricably intertwined. But all of this to say that once I looked at the math myself and I saw the increase in wages and that wages have kind of caught up past the inflationary effects as of Q1 this year, and I saw the disparity between what's happened with property values, which as a tangent is another good reason to eliminate property tax in Texas. I'm in favor of this budget and the tax rate.
Okay. Anthony?
Thank you, Mayor. I have some comments as well. Y'all will be relieved. At least tonight I don't have slides. I know I did that to y'all twice during the budget process, so my apologies for that. Anyway, I want to start by just quickly thanking City Manager Israelson and Director Rhodes Whitley and the Budget and Research team for answering tons of questions during this budget process. I have greatly appreciated it. I know it's not easy, so thank you. I also want to compliment what I view as the absolutely excellent work that City Manager Israelson, Director Rhodes Whitley, the Budget and Research team, and all of the department heads and the whole staff have done on the program of service. Y'all immediately took a proactive and decisive approach when it emerged that we were in a challenging fiscal environment, and I just feel that we have the best staff on the earth, and so I really appreciate y'all. It probably will not surprise y'all to know that after a lot of reflection and really a harder decision than I had anticipated earlier in the process, I have to vote no on this budget to sound a note of caution about the sustainability of filling the holes that we are very truly facing with property taxes. That's certainly one way that we can do it, but I think there are other ways to do it that I would advocate for. I think there used to be more of a perception that a budget vote was a vote on whether the city is a good value overall, the overall direction of the city, confidence in city leadership. I think that people now understand that we're just voting on a budget for 1 year, but I still feel the need to say that my confidence in City Manager Israelson is absolute, and my confidence in Director Rhodes Whitley and this whole 2,500-person staff is absolute. We truly have the city of excellence here, and I feel so blessed to be a part of this. As you all know and are probably sick of, I have talked for a long time about cost recovery and the declining percentage of general fund revenues that come from non-tax revenues, things that are not property taxes or sales taxes. I was really happy to see Deputy City Manager Seamer up here during the fiscal roadmap presentation earlier this evening, talking about looking at cost recovery. You all know I have been on that soapbox for years probably, and development revenues are an example of that. I don't think we've updated those since sometime around 2017. While obviously we've seen tremendous inflation and the complexity of what our planners do increasing on a case-by-case basis, each case being more complex. So that's something, for those value-added services that benefit individuals and businesses in a particularized way. I really look forward to seeing what we're going to see from the additional cost recovery. I think that's fantastic. I do want to offer some clarifications because I want the community to be clear on this. The growth that we're seeing in property taxes that I'll talk about in a second, relating to what Councilmember Williams said, is absolutely not a result of out-of-control spending. To the contrary, we're seeing only 0.2% increase in general fund revenues and a 2.8% increase in revenues for the combined budget net of the North Texas Municipal Water District payment. So it's important for the community to understand that not only is spending not out of control, this budget, from a spending perspective, exercises tremendous fiscal restraint in the face of challenging fiscal conditions. Both of those numbers, of course, are less than inflation. Also, Plano remains a great value, the best value. If we compare to other Collin County cities, Plano has a tax bill of $1,744 this year for the average homeowner who has just the homestead exemption and no other exemptions. Those numbers for Allen are $2,122. For McKinney are $2,138. And for the Collin County portion of Frisco, this is only the Collin County portion, $2,371. And for that, we get tremendous city services. So I think that the city of Plano is the best value in the world by a wide margin. That probably begs the question, why not vote for the budget then? Well, some of the trends that we're facing, the flattening of certain revenues and spikes in certain expenses, make it inevitable that there will be an impact, a significant impact somewhere in this budget. As a philosophical point, I believe that maintaining the same tax rate, those impacts are allocated too heavily to property taxpayers. I believe that we should operate within the twin constraints that we have to take care of our employees and we have to take care of our taxpayers. I was very glad that we found the money for our employees so that we can meet our median plus 5% pay philosophy. I absolutely support the raises, the $5.3 million, and as y'all remember, I put forth a proposal at the last meeting that would have kept all of that, every penny that we're spending on employee compensation, and I do support every penny that we're spending on employee compensation in this budget, and still would have provided some amount of tax relief to residents, which I just think is incumbent on us when we're facing a significant tax impact like this. I think Councilmember Williams raised excellent points just now. I think his analysis is good, but really in talking with Councilmember Williams, obviously less than a quorum, just the two of us talking outside of a meeting, it really shifted my perspective from that 12% increase for the average homeowner to looking at the overall numbers. Even those overall numbers, though, and these are numbers that the budget team prepared, 6.77% increase in property tax revenue from existing properties, which is double inflation, 8.35% increase if you include the new growth, properties coming online to the tax roll, which is double inflation and population growth. Even if you take out some of the things that state law requires to be taken out, like TIF, and things that should be taken out, like the senior tax freeze, you end up with the 6.9% number that we're going to see in item 7, which is significantly higher than the 4% inflation and population growth. So while I do think that Councilmember Williams has an excellent point that the 12% increase, which the average homeowner with only a homestead exemption will face this year, doesn't tell the whole story of this budget. So I just wanted to point that out, but nonetheless, I just think that if homeowners face, and if not just homeowners, all property taxpayers face increases greater than inflation and population growth year over year, it's not going to be sustainable over time. For those of us who were elected in 2017, we probably remember the acrimony about budgets when we started. There's not acrimony, by and large, about budgets like that these days. And, you know, this will be my last budget on the council, but for those who are continuing, I would just really encourage y'all to remember what that acrimony was like when budgets were contentious. And please don't wait for, you know, anger and backlash to start lowering the tax rate. Because if these trends continue, there will come a point where residents will be upset and we'll be back where we were, that I think we're all so proud that we worked our way out of, you know, all those years ago where there was acrimony in the community. And so I would encourage y'all to be proactive next year, because another thing Councilmember Williams made an excellent point about is the appraisal cap. We are still way under where the taxable value of homes would be without that 10% appraisal cap. So even if values don't increase next year, it is likely that at the same tax rate, next year homeowners would see another 10% increase. And so I just really want to encourage y'all to be mindful of that going forward next year. Anyway, I'm going to skip some of these comments. This is taking longer than I thought it would be. Okay, well, anyway, that's just, you know, I appreciate the great work, but I'm going to have to vote no. Thank you.
Okay, there is going to be a quiz between Councilmember Riccadelli and I.
Oh, my God. Thank you, Anthony, but motion to approve. Move to approve.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to approve item number 3. Does everybody understand that? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. I didn't say Simon Says. All opposed? Okay.
Oh, no.
7-1.
You know what? You get to a point in the meeting. I used all my mental energy. Sorry,
Item number 4, consideration of an ordinance to approve and adopt the Community Investment Program and setting the appropriations for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025, and providing an effective date.
Yes, this is your community investment program. We have provided the appropriations along with the funding mechanisms within here. The total is $320.9 million for the community investment program.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 4. All in favor?
Mayor, if I may just take five seconds, I just want to say I'm going to raise my arm this time, and it's not a mistake because my issues were on the other side of the budget, not on the side. So, thank you.
Okay. Did you, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all opposed. So 8-0. Item number 5.
Item number 5, public hearing on the proposed tax rate of .4176 per $100 of taxable value for fiscal year 2024-25.
Yes, this is the public hearing. This is actually your second public hearing on the actual tax rate of 41.76 cents per $100 of assessed property values. Your first public hearing we did back August 26th, and this is our second one, even though by law we only need to do one. We always do a couple of them. So this is your second public hearing.
All right. I'll open the public hearing. I think we have a speaker.
One speaker, Jennifer Groisman.
Hello again. By keeping the tax rate the same as last year, you will be giving residents the largest tax increase in 20 years. That's your words, not mine. For me, that means I have to come up with $271.61 for Plano by the end of January. and I am not getting a raise this next year. My total bill, unlike your nice charts there, Shelby, has never gone down. It's always gone up, and I've lived here 16 years, so I've always taken it on the chin. And my total tax bill for Plano, according to your own site, will be $2,406.13. So not exactly the average. I once brought a bag of groceries to City Council to show you what a parent can get at the store for the cost of the proposed tax increase that year. If I had to do that today, I would have to bring in the entire cart of food. And to prove it, here is my receipt from HEB, which is $270.53 of groceries. Residents are struggling to pay for food. According to Spectrum News, 77% of Texans are having trouble buying food. They now have to decide between buying food or paying the utilities. When you make tax bills higher, you only cause the price of living in Plano to go up. If you want families to move to Plano, they have to be able to afford it. If they can't afford the tax bill, you will send them north, where the homes are cheaper and the tax payments are lower. You also are making rents higher when you increase people's tax bills, because landlords are not going to eat the higher cost. My children both graduated from college this spring. Neither one of them are able to afford rent in Plano on their salary. I have 3 generations living in my house right now, and nobody's going anywhere soon. If you do not keep taxes affordable for the average person to live here, Plano will be made up of 3 demographics: seniors with the property tax freeze, the very rich, and companies you give corporate welfare to. Stop putting multi-million-dollar companies first and give us 1 cent in a deduction of tax rate. That will at least help us a little bit and reduce the increase slightly. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'll close the public hearing, confine the comments to the council.
We'll go to number 6.
Yes. Item number 6.
Consideration of an ordinance to approve and adopt the tax rate for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024 and terminating September 30th, 2025, and providing an effective date. And there is specific language required for the motions.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.4176 cent, which is effectively a 5.29% increase in the tax rate.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 6. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Motion passes 7-1. Item 7.
Item number 7, consideration of an ordinance to ratify the property tax revenue in the 2024-25 budget as a result of the city receiving more revenues from property taxes in the 2024-25 budget than in the previous fiscal year, and providing an effective date. And this one also requires specific language.
Mr. Mayor, I move to ratify the property tax increase reflected in the budget adopted for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve item number 7. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Motion passes 7-1.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Next item.
The next item is comments of public interest. This portion of the meeting is to allow up to 3 minutes per speaker, with 30 total minutes on items of interest or concern and not on items that are on the current agenda. The council may not discuss these items, but may respond with factual or policy information. The council may choose to place the item on a future agenda. And we have two speakers, but I am not showing either of them on Zoom.
That's a problem. You don't see them?
There's no one as
Okay.
an attendee on Zoom.
There being no further business, we're adjourned.
There's